Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Zim's Beer Review. I'm Garrett Zimmer, your host. This is episode 5. Today, we have a moderately local beer to me here in Wyoming. This is from Teton Brewing. Teton Brewing is actually located in Idaho, just outside of Wyoming. They are right over the Teton Mountains from Jackson. So welcome. This one is called their Black Cauldron Imperial Stout. It is a seasonal beer that they do only in the fall, winter time. It is not a year-round beer. I'll tell you a little bit more about the beers that they do have year-round as well as their seasonal ones here in a minute. But the one we'll be reviewing today is the Black Cauldron Imperial Stout. I have not had this before. I have not read any reviews on this. I don't know what to expect. The only thing that I can tell you straight off the bat is this is going to be a stout. This is sitting at 9.5% alcohol. So this is a strong beer. We'll use our trusted bottle opener from Shaver Wood that we use on all of our bottle openings on our podcast here. If I can get it open. Okay. So let's go ahead and pour this, and then we'll start tasting and reviewing it a little bit. So right off the bat, as I'm pouring this is very dark. This is pouring out almost pitch black. It looks like used oil. This is really thick stuff. It's not quite a syrup consistency. It's still a beer, obviously, but it is thick. It is thicker than your average beer, most definitely. If you're following us on Twitch or YouTube live streaming, you can see on our screen here, this is a very dark beer. This is 100% opaque. I'm holding it right up to my light here for our podcast, and I can't even get any light to come through this. This is extremely stout, extremely dark. Overall, the color is black. The head on it is a light brown gold color. Died off pretty quickly. We had a little bit of a head for a second or two, but it died off pretty quick. Part of that is probably because I've been drinking out of this glass already tonight, so it is not a frosted glass. It was an extremely cold beer, however. So the two temperature differences might have played into the head dying off pretty quickly, but the first scent I get when I smell this is vanilla. It smells like a vanilla cinnamon, kind of what you'd expect from a stout, but it's a really strong scent. We'll give it a try here. It's actually surprisingly smooth. It's for how strong it is, 9.5%. If I did not read that on the bottle, I don't think I would have guessed that right away. Now that I've had it for a second on the back end, you definitely do taste the alcohol a little bit more. The one flavor that really caught me off guard, it tastes smoky. It tastes like this beer was in a smoker. It has the cinnamon that I mentioned, and the vanilla flavors to it. That's probably mostly through the smell of it. The flavor is really heavy on the smoke side. Yeah, very smoky. It tastes like if they said that this had smoke in it, like a liquid smoke of some kind, which I guess does play into the name. They're calling it Black Cauldron. There's even flames of a black cauldron on the front of the bottle. So maybe they are playing into the smoky aspect of it there, but it is, as far as a stout goes, this is an extremely smoky flavor. Not bad. I don't know if I could drink a few of these in a night. This is probably a one-hit wonder for your night, not just because of the flavor. It's really powerful, but it's also the alcohol content is really powerful. I don't know if I could drink too many of these. So we'll tell you a little bit more about the brewery. So Teton Brewery is, like I said, it's in Idaho. It's in Victor, Idaho, on Old Jackson Highway. It's just just across the border from Wyoming. The closest big town in Wyoming would be Jackson, Wyoming. So right on the border, though, right at the same Teton Mountains, right through there. They brew their beer with glacier runoff, they say. Grand Teton Brewery has been around since 1988, so they're going on almost 30 years here in just a couple days. Doing a little bit of research on their brewery here. I've seen their beers around. Going to their website, I did see a few beers that I was like, oh, I recognize that beer, but I did not know that it was Grand Teton Brewing. I recognize them. I haven't had all of them. I haven't even had most of them. They have 6 beers that they have in stores available year-round. They have a couple ales. They have an American Pale Ale. They have an IPA. They have a Saison Session Ale that's like, if you're not familiar with session ales, they call it a session so you can sit down and drink a few in a session. So they go by it's not super powerful. Those session beers are going to be a little bit lighter. But anyways, so they have 6 beers that they have year-round. But then they also have their seasonal line. And the beer we're drinking today, this Black Cauldron Imperial Stout, is a seasonal beer. This is only available in the fall and the winter, like I had mentioned at the beginning. But they also have a double IPA, a grapefruit ale, and a fest beer lager. That would be winter/spring, spring/summer. And then they have the winter, and then this would be the winter one, the Black Cauldron. But then they have the fest beer lager, which, judging by the label, is going to be a fall beer, more of a Oktoberfest style. One other thing that I found really interesting about the Grand Teton Brewery is they have soda. They don't necessarily brew soda, I guess. I guess you might brew root beer, but they make root beer and cream soda under the name Old Faithful. So if you ever see Old Faithful root beer or Old Faithful cream soda, that comes from the same brewery that makes the beer we're trying today, this Black Cauldron, Grand Teton Brewing in Victor, Idaho. They have not been making their sodas for nearly as long as they've made their beer. According to their website here, they've only been making their soda since 2003. So they spent about 15 years making just beer. And then as they grew, incorporated the sodas into it a little bit. So yeah, that's a little bit about the brewery, the Grand Teton Brewery in Victor, Idaho. They are a moderately large brewery. They are not available nationwide. Let me do a little quick count here. I want to say they are available in 13 different states, mostly in the West, although they are not available in Oregon, and then the Midwest up near Minnesota, the South, or both Dakotas, Montana, and then right through here, Wyoming, Colorado, that area. But then they're also available, it looks like, in both of the Carolinas, which is kind of interesting, that they're mostly to the west, but then they also ship to the Carolinas, which I find kind of interesting. Not available nationwide, like I said, but a pretty decent spread, more than some of the previous beers we've reviewed. Going back to the beer review of this, I gotta say, it is very smoky. I would be interested to find out if other people are getting the same smoke flavor that I am. I know I definitely am tasting cinnamon, definitely tasting a vanilla like aspects to this, like a chocolatey flavor. It's rather sweet. It's not bitter at all. I think the bitterness units on this were relatively low. The bitterness units are only 54, which is pretty low on the scale. But it's sweet, but I have to keep going back to the smokiness of it. That's really what I taste. I don't smell it. I don't see anything written on the bottle mentioning it other than just the label of the Black Cauldron. Not a bad beer by any means. Is it something I'd buy again? I don't know. I would definitely like to try more of Grand Teton's products, including their sodas, but I don't know if I would try this Imperial Stout again. It's a it's a little it's a little too stout for me. The alcohol content is higher than most beers in general, and it's higher than most stouts in general. But the smoke flavor, me personally, not a big fan of the smokiness of it. Not a big fan of uh, that smoked flavor in most of my foods. So when I drink a beer, it's really not the flavor I'm looking for. So I'd have to say that's probably the one thing that I'm not super thrilled about with the flavor of it. Overall, it's a good drink, but it's one you'll sip on for a little bit. It's not one you're gonna drink 6 of these in a night. I mean, I'm sure you could, but I don't know how well you'd be tasting those last 3. It's really strong. The first flavor you get right on the front is really sweet, really chocolatey vanilla flavor. Then you get a hit of smoke, and then the smoke lingers for a long time. And then after 5-10 seconds, after you've swallowed your drink, then you start to taste the alcohol. Then you start getting that, not a burn, but you can finally tell, oh, this is a high in alcohol content here. Overall, not a bad beer. Also not one of my favorites. I do like it, but if you're into stouts, I recommend trying it. I know there's other smoky flavored beers out there. Not necessarily for me, but to each their own. I would recommend this to anyone who's interested in stouts, imperial stouts, smoky beers, high alcohol content beers, or if you're in the area, if you live in Idaho, if you live in Wyoming, give them a try. Give Grand Teton Brewing a try. I think you'll like it. And if for nothing else, support a local brewery. So that would be my review of the Grand Teton Black Cauldron Imperial Stout. And until next time, thank you and happy drinking.